Hello everyone and welcome to another episode. I desperately wanted to cover everything that was added in Act 2 and now Act 3 is out as well and I can talk about that too a little bit. I've already done a video on Act 3 and even a video on some of the stuff that was added in Act 2 already, but there was much to do, and since we had that really nice video kind of summarising Act 1 to let you guys know what happened, I thought I'd show you what these other acts are. I don't think all of us fully knew what to expect with the later acts. At least I think you would have been foolish if you thought you knew what was coming, because we kind of had Act 1 and that introduced all the decorations and a lot of general stuff you can do around the world. It just meant that wherever you were playing really in the game, somehow the Halloween event could now influence you, whether that being nodes having changed into candy corn, the costume brawl being available all over the friggin' place, or whether you were hanging out in Kryta finding these doors spawning everywhere and lots of new enemies to kill. Well, with Act 2, they could have then just added a tiny little bit, perhaps an extension to the quest chain we saw at the start of Act 1, and then brushed their hands and been done with it and said, well, there you go, that's it, that's Act 2, and then just add a tiny little thing, a tiny little thing, a tiny little thing. And I'm happy to say they didn't do that. They kind of did with Act 3 a little bit, but they didn't at least with Act 2. Act 2 introduced to us the Mad Realm. This was a place we'd heard about a lot in the first game. It's kind of where the Mad King Thorn, the main guy of Halloween, comes from, and we knew where it was kind of located, but we'd never really been there. We'd never actually got to experience it. Well, with Guild Wars 2 we actually can do so. Those doors that had been spawning everywhere in Act 1, well, now you can walk back through those doors. The doors still spawn as random events all around Kryta, and that continues uninterrupted, but also added were a few meta event chains that see you assisting the Dermond Priory as they themselves experiment with all the weird crap that's been going on, and finally when it ends it will spawn a whole bunch of doors that stick around for a very long time, and well, comparatively to the fast respawning doors that already existed, and you can actually walk through for yourself. Those are marked by pumpkins on your minimap, and you'll know if they're there because they're all over the place. There will be tons that spawn around all of the maps, so you can pretty much go to any waypoint you want, and one will be in reasonable range, so people aren't forced to spend any money, and you can just run on through. They'll be open for a while, and then they'll close again, or at least that's how things were running. That is how you used to be able to enter the Mad Realm. However, as of today, they're just permanently available, and those meta event chains, I don't believe, are rolling anymore. They were pretty good. They would cycle through pretty quickly, but the problem was they would bug, and I was kind of victim. Oh, that makes it sound so bad, but I did experience one of these bugs where they blocked and they stopped. If you spent any time playing Guild Wars 2, you'll know that if an event in a chain bugs out and stops working, you're just totally screwed. Neither will it fail, neither will it push forward into events that you actually want to see. So that was happening, and no one had access to the Mad Realm on Emery Bay for quite a while. And that seems to have been cropping up all over the place. I guess ArenaNet couldn't fix it, so they just said, look, from now till the rest of the event, they're just going to be open. We don't want to have this be a problem for the future, so you can just always get in right now. And those events, as far as I'm aware at least, aren't rolling anymore. It does make me question with stuff like this, with dynamic events, you'd hope that they'd work out the system. I remember when they were first bringing out the game and talking about dynamic events, how worried they were that everyone would think they're terrible and that they wouldn't work, and everyone was really excited about them. But now maybe I'm seeing why they were worried. These are flaws of the dynamic event system. However they're developing these things, they do seem to bug out pretty easy, and that's very serious. That is just content blocked off straight away, and when it's especially tied to something as big as entering a whole new realm in the game, yeah, that can be a problem. Though I say all this, I don't think it occurred that often. I only saw it once, and I've been in and out of this place many times. But in any case, the Mad Realm itself is host to 4 different locations, 4 different things you can do. You'll first zone in, and it will all look amazing and very weird. You'll be on a giant floating rock up in the sky, and if you press M, you'll see there are various areas of the Mad Realm that you can access. There's a boatman, this demonic guy with one of the new skins actually that he's wielding, and you can approach him and speak to him, and he will teleport you into one of 3 of those areas in the Mad Realm. Technically, while you're on this giant floating rock, you're actually in a place called the Labyrinth, so I may as well explain and talk about the Labyrinth first. This place is just kind of a free-for-all generic PvE area, so it's the easiest to explain. You can just run around in there. There'll be tons of events, more doors actually, so you've already walked into a door, and now you can walk around the Labyrinth, this new map, this giant place, and there'll be even more doors spawning there, and you can open those as you could on the surface to trigger other events. Except this is an entirely level 80 place, so all the doors before and all the Halloween events were occurring in lower level areas because it was around Kryta, and the highest of those areas, the Harathi Hinterlands, didn't even really have much happening in it. But now this is a level 80 area. ArenaNet did, and so you'll get the better rewards, but ArenaNet did announce that players of all levels should be able to participate in Halloween. They did go back on that slightly with the new quest chain they added for Act 2, but for the Labyrinth, everyone is scaled up to 80 to be able to participate in this content, just as you are in World vs. World. I've experienced a bit of content in there because I thought it would be a good idea to try and level up my thief while I was in there, but yeah, fighting all the level 80 stuff and experiencing the new events, but I don't know, I found it very hard. If you don't have backup, don't expect to be on a level 2 and just be able to hang out in the Labyrinth for ages and get fat loot and do incredible. It's actually kind of difficult in there. Another little thing that was going on with the Labyrinth is in the very middle of it. It's not much of a maze, but when you do get into the centre of it, there's this big kind of area down there with a very powerful candy corn enemy that spawns, a king-sized. I love the way they name those guys, by the way. It's a king-sized candy corn that, when you fight, he's actually guarding a chest that originally could be opened very, very frequently, and also had, as it seems, an incredibly high chance of dropping exotics from the chest. This was a while ago now. That has also been patched, but I do think the chest is supposedly still worthwhile. You can still get semi-decent stuff from it, but it does pale in comparison to what was added in Act 3, which I'll get into later. So that's the Labyrinth, just kind of generic PvE stuff, but it's a new area, you're fighting kind of new enemies, obviously the Halloween enemies, lots of events going on, vast quantities of enemies because lots of players are around there. Generally, everything scales up very nicely, and it's a good chance to just go in and wreck face, kill tons and tons of stuff. If that's what you're missing for daily, your 60 kills, you can get it very, very quickly. Now, the second place, so that's the first place, and the staging zone, essentially where you first zone in on this floating rock is there, the Labyrinth. The second area is the Mad King's Clock Tower. This is a massive jumping puzzle. It's the first truly challenging jumping puzzle, just like all jumping puzzles, by the way. Can I just get this out there? All jumping puzzles, if you do them enough, you'll get very good at them and you'll be able to beat them. That doesn't mean if you spend 4 hours doing the Mad King's Clock Tower and then you get good at it, that's not a flaw with the game. And if you then go online onto the internet and start hammering your keyboard about how easy it is and how you're disappointed, then you're doing it wrong. You're going to get better at this stuff with practice. That's how it works. It's not surprising that people can complete it over and over and over again. All challenges lose their edge after a while unless you're being statistically gated, which doesn't matter for jumping puzzles. So with that clear, it's a challenging jumping puzzle. I don't care whether you've spent ages and got really good at it. It's not an easy jumping puzzle. It's a challenging jumping puzzle. It did have a bug. I did a video on it and I had immense fun. I sounded very frustrated in that video. I was actually very much enjoying myself, but it took me about 2.5 hours to complete, mainly for me because there was a bug at the top, and it was a bug. It wasn't because I was jumping at an angle. It was a bug. The ArenaNet then patched and fixed, and after it was fixed, I got in 3 times in a row, so it was definitely a bug at the top there when it first came out, which was a little bit of a problem, but that's been ironed out now, and in general, I think most people agree that it is the most challenging jumping puzzle in the game. Do feel free to try it. I do know that some people who aren't being stopped by bugs actually really, really do struggle. If you're not very good at jumping at all in any game, I wouldn't recommend doing it. The reward at the end is some exotic equipment, part of the Mad King's armor, which is nice and rewarding, but it's also something that you can, if you're really struggling, pass up. But in any case, that's the second thing, the Mad King's Clock Tower. You can watch me struggle and work my way through it for my first time on a video I put up a couple of days ago. There's also some weird stuff you can do in the staging area for that, by the way. You can bug out. It's kind of interesting. So that's the second thing in the Mad Realm. The third area of the Mad Realm, these are all totally different zones within it, is a place called the Lunatic Inquisition. The last two are kind of mini-games. They're both PvP mini-games. The first one is Lunatic Inquisition. This is a very Halloween-y mini-game, actually, and I really like that they put it up. It's essentially a zombies or infection game type that you may have seen in other games. I particularly know it from Halo. You'll load into a map, which is the same as the Labyrinth map, except there's no PvE enemies or nothing like that going on. You're still in the same Labyrinth, but there are 2 teams. There's loads of survivors or villagers, and then there are loads of agents of the Mad King, the Lunatic Court, who are ghosts, people that have died and have now come back, and they're working alongside the Mad King. Now, if you are a villager, you have no way of harming anyone on the other team, and it's your goal to survive for as long as you possibly can, while the others rush through the maze trying to find and kill you. If you die, you will become a ghost, and the hunted will become the hunter, and you get to fight. Now, while you're a villager, you can't actually hurt the enemies, but you do have objectives that you can complete. There are events which are spawning on the map that you and other villagers should be working together to try and complete, and you'll be rewarded for doing those with banquets, some feasts that you can eat from, that will then grant you a short period of swiftness, which you can use to get away from the ghosts who are already slightly slower than you, but they have combat skills which they can use to their advantage. There's a lot of depth here, actually, but I don't think it's as fun as it could be, owing to the fact anyone can come in and out of the game at any time, so that last man standing feel that you get from other infection or zombie kind of game types you see elsewhere doesn't really come in Guild Wars 2. People tend to just die and then zone out straight away if they're a villager, and then there's a shortage of ghosts, and it's not like you're slowly going to be overwhelmed. It really is missing out there. I think that this would have been drastically better if ArenaNet did just get rid of the opportunity to leave the instance at any time. Yes, maybe people should have the option to do it, but perhaps they'd have to spend a little bit of money to get out, just a tiny little bit, just to disincentivize people from jumping straight out immediately. Then you can actually get some games through. You'd see people finishing the full games. There is a reward for it. It's 3 trick or treat bags, but that's not enough for the length of time that these actually last, which is about 12 minutes, I believe, that you have to try and stay for as long as you possibly can. So that's the main problem. There just aren't enough players around in these things, even if there are a lot of people that are interested in playing. It's one of those things, if there's not enough there, then it's just going to lose a lot of its appeal straight away. So that's a big problem with it. I think if they'd done that, maybe it would be a little bit different. These things might get refined in next year's Halloween, I suppose. But there is a lot there still, and I had a lot of fun. I got in quite late on this, so a lot of people already weren't there when I was finally fiddling about with it and seeing how it worked. And some of the other mechanics are, you don't have any way of damaging the ghosts, but as a villager you can pick up items on the floor that will do various things for you. Like, your health doesn't regenerate, so there's this kind of, oh god, you're slowly getting weaker and weaker and weaker, but you can find food that will heal you up, for example, and you can find various items that are not only used in the events, but also to immobilize your enemies or run away. The catch is, though, fantastically, that the ghosts can also pick up these items, and they instead will be able to use them as traps within the labyrinth. So there's a cobwebby area that you could be running around in, and the ghosts could lay traps there later, and you'll be running away from the ghosts, which you very much can do because you're a little bit faster than them, especially if they're considered in combat, but eventually you'll run into a trap that a different one's left and meet your inevitable doom. I think another big problem with it at the moment is it's kind of slow paced, and I can see that ArenaNet probably wanted it to feel reasonably slow paced, but the excitement doesn't amp up towards the end of the map, and that's the problem, where people are just zoning out. So another thing I would have quite liked to see, just a bit of a weird fix I think I would have put, is everyone on the map, ghosts and people alike, villagers alike, actually move faster as it goes longer. I would have added that, because then this very large map suddenly becomes much quicker to get around to find other people in the first place. And yes, that means if you're pursuing someone, they'll be able to get away just as quick, but this also means that the traps come into play a lot more. You'll run into traps a lot quicker because the map is so large, but you're moving around it that faster, and you're that much more likely to hit one of these traps, and things will come to a head a lot quicker. So there are some slight things, but I very much would recommend it. I don't really want this to be a critique and to tell people, oh no, don't play it. It's actually really a fun mini game. It's only here for Halloween, so I'd at least recommend you try it out. The rewards are just a little bit lacking, I suppose. There's no achievement for doing particularly well, but you do earn glory, I think, actually. You will actually get glory because it's considered PvP, so you're at least making progress towards something. If you've been put off of doing SPvP, but you want to actually get that rabbit, for example, appear up on your character select screen, then this could be your chance to do that at least. The last area is Reaper's Rumble. This is, again, PvP, so as you can see, ArenaNet have added some PvP stuff for people, which I think is a good thing. A lot of games, especially with festivals and stuff, they just add PvE content, but they've actually given everyone something to enjoy. Though, if you are more of a PvPer, then this is probably more your type of thing, rather than the Inquisition. Maybe Inquisition would be more your thing if you were a world versus worlder, because that's the idea. Like, one is super balanced, and one is just unbalanced situations that you can take advantage of and stuff. Maybe. In any case, this area is a pretty interesting arena. ArenaNet made a statement quite recently about how they had wanted to tap into some MOBA-style gameplay, or about how everyone at the moment was going for MOBA-style stuff. I thought, honestly, that was going to be something to do with Winter's Day, because in Guild Wars 1 we had MOBA-style gameplay in Winter's Day, but actually, turns out it was something far sooner. It was this very event. So, the Reaper's Rumble is a PvP arena where on either side of the map there's 2 teams, and each team has control over 3 mausoleums, right? These are 3 structures that, if all 3 of them are destroyed, signals the defeat of your team. So the idea is to defend your own mausoleums while destroying your enemy's mausoleums. Each mausoleum, though, has a bunch of NPCs around it, skeletons with really cool looking rifles, by the way, which will defend it very fiercely, and if you're alone, you're probably not going to be able to get past them to defeat these structures, especially considering the structures have got a fair bit of health. You're going to want some backup. So on the map are skeletons, troopers, just general NPC allies that are spawning continuously out of these mausoleums, and they will charge in a long line up from your mausoleum. So say on the left hand side of the map you've got 2 mausoleums, one on the south of the map, one on the top, one belonging to either team. They will march from your mausoleum to the enemy's mausoleum to the north to try and take it out. So you as a player can aid your skeletons. You can fight alongside your skeletons. Don't forget the enemy skeletons will be coming down at the same time, so they'll be fighting each other in the middle, and you can keep killing the enemy skeletons, helping your own, pushing up until eventually you can break the enemy structures, provided the other team's players don't spot you while you're at it. Now, players can control the spawning of skeletons. They don't just automatically come out. Skeletons are spawned by pumpkins being thrown inside the mausoleum you want the skeletons to spawn out of. So all the while there's just this general PvP fight going on, there are pumpkins spawning out in the fields and around the areas. The fields, by the way, look so cool. You know how like foliage moves and stuff in this game when you run past? I'm in a little Asura, and the cornfields, for example, the wheat fields, the stalks are so high in them. As I run around, they're kind of rustling and I can't see my character. I can only tell where I am because of the tops of them shaking around. It's a really nice effect. But in any case, pumpkins will spawn in these places. And you can pick them up. They're an environmental weapon that will change your skills. You'll get 2 new skills, both of which destroy the pumpkin, which ideally you don't want to do. And what you want to do is take this pumpkin back to the mausoleum, and then you throw it inside the mausoleum on the pile of bones, which will then animate and turn into a handful of skeletons, which will then march on the enemy base. So not only are you fighting other players, trying to stop them from doing things, it's a 15-second respawn timer, so there is value in killing people. It will keep them off of the map for a length of time, or you can run around trying to spawn these skeletons. Skeletons are automatically spawned. Stood next to the mausoleum is going to be an NPC ghost called a farmer, who's like constantly finding pumpkins for himself, but the enemy can kill your farmer. So if you see your farmer's dead, you'll want to resurrect it, because that's your only way of getting skeletons. And the idea is slowly one team's skeletons will push further and further against the other team's skeletons and destroy all 3 structures. It's very basic. That's about as far as it goes. Everyone has the same skills, everyone has the same stats, and the skill bar you get is actually pretty cool. It's axe main hand, pistol off hand, and the best skill by far is skill 5, which is on a reasonably long cooldown, but it's an aimed shot, and the shot will do like 50% damage to someone's health. It feels so good just lining that up and shooting, predicting where someone's going to be and nailing them and actually managing to finish people off. It's so good. So this is pretty fun. I wouldn't say it's as competitive as SPVP, certainly. Everyone's on a level footing as well, so as long as you know the rules, which are pretty easy to pick up as there aren't that many, you can just jump into the arena. The only thing I found annoying, honestly this is the one I've played least out of everything, the only thing I found annoying as an Asura at least, is there's lots of graveyards on the map, and as you run past them, the camera just bugs out like mad, and it's super annoying. Oh, and one other thing as well that's very interesting about skill 5, going back to that, is that it will be obstructed by the environment, and depending on how far away the shot lands, it explodes, and depending on how far away the shot lands, it actually changes the amount of damage you do with the weapon. So that's even better as well. I love it. It's such a good skill. It's very, very well designed, and I love the skill bars that everyone gets in there. So those are the 2 PvP game types. Those are the 2 PvE things as well, the jumping puzzle and the labyrinth. That was pretty much everything that was added in Act 2, alongside an extension to the quest chain that we got to begin in Act 1. Honestly though, if I was ArenaNet looking back, I probably would have added the extension to the quest chain in Act 3, because along came Act 3 just the other day, and this only added one thing to the game. It added a mini dungeon, a proper dungeon. Like, you complete that with 5 members of your guild, you'll get tons of influence for it, and I have been doing it an awful lot. I would say this is the first time in Guild Wars 2 I've really grinded on something, or felt like I've been grinding, and it's been curious because I've not really felt compelled to do it for anything else, but here the chest at the end can actually drop some of the very rare, previously only available through crafting, Halloween weapons. Now, a lot of people are very complaining about this because it does cost like hundreds and hundreds of gold to craft these things if you want to, and now ArenaNet have just added them spawning at a random rate out of a chest, and some people, indeed I know a few, are going in and getting these ridiculously expensive, really, really good things on their first or second run without really putting any effort in, and people are complaining, particularly those who have been working towards crafting it. Now, to that I would say it is a shame that they added the crafted recipe and then introduced the dungeon. I think they should have introduced the dungeon first and then added the crafted recipe later, because the key to this is, while this dungeon is available, this is your only opportunity to get those for free, essentially. All year round you'll be able to craft these extremely rare weapons, but you'll only be able to get them for free if you do it now. So there are some people who have been screwed over from the crafting. I think ArenaNet should have just had it as a dungeon ward, then right at the end of Halloween said, oh hey look, there's a few new recipes for these super rare weapons, look, it will take this much, and then I think everyone would have been much more happy about it, but as it stands they're not. I personally, I've been going for the bow, Arachnophobia. The rates are certainly very, very low. I still haven't gotten one, and it's been an interesting interesting experience for that, because as I said, I haven't really grinded in Guild Wars 2. One thing I will say is it never ended up being mindless for me. The arena is designed in such a way that, yes, fighting the Mad King himself, you can do on autopilot, you really can, but actually maneuvering around the arena, which isn't so much a jumping puzzle as rather a place that requires you to jump. I don't think those two things should be seen as the same, as many people do. But that always requires some measure of being engaged with the game, which I really like, actually. I've done this dungeon so many times, but it doesn't make me want to kill myself, at least, which is cool, because I was wondering how that was going to go with Guild Wars 2. It is, of course, completely optional grind. The game has never said it wouldn't have optional grind. I think people who worry about that are probably being a little bit unreasonable. But yeah, so you do have an opportunity to get these weapons. Take my warning, though. You might have had a friend or two that have got something great, but that doesn't mean you will. I mean, I don't necessarily regret the amount of time I've tried to do it. I have got other stuff out of it, like Black Lion stuff, but it is very difficult to do. However, even going back on myself there, this dungeon will not be available when Act 4 goes live tomorrow, so this is your last chance if you want it. It's not going to be here for the entirety of Halloween, and in fact, that will be my last video on Halloween as well, when Act 4 comes out. You might wonder, well, I've just done Act 2 and 3 together, why not do Act 4 as well? I think Act 4 is probably just going to be some kind of party event like we had at the finales of Guild Wars 1, and for that, it means that if I were to wait for all of them to come out, then the event's already over before you guys get to see the video. So I wanted to do this just to let you all know, keep you all up to date with what's going on. I'm sure many of you are already aware, but some of you might have been on the edge whether you'd come back and try Halloween, and now you know everything that's there. As you can probably tell, I quite recommend it. There's a bit of something for everyone there, really. But thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll give you my final thoughts and kind of a general wrap-up, I suppose, on Halloween. I hope you guys have been having fun. I've always found something to do. I'm quite shocked that with every act, ArenaNet have consistently added something that I've just grinded on constantly. With every act, all three of them have added something like that. So we'll see how Act 4 goes. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I hope they give us a hat or something like that. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day.